like to call the Highway and Building Committee meeting to order for Thursday, December 10th. And before we officially call it to order, I'd like to make a couple comments. I see our chairman has changed the committee members around, so we have some new committee members as well as some old committee members. Let me tell you how I like to run meetings. I like them short, to the point. All of us, and I just met Ms. Hudson for the first time, so she's the new one to me, and there's Ken over there on Zoom. We're not interested in who you are, where you work, who you know. We're interested in what you contribute to this group. And all of us, and I've been here 3 years, not a lot of years, all of us have something to contribute because we all have different life experiences. So when it gets to the point where you know something, please speak. If you don't know anything, all of us have jobs to do, and we'd like to keep moving forward, but please speak. And I expect one of the new members to ask questions, and one of them is, you need to be introduced to the dude. So somebody needs to ask, who is the dude and how long has he worked for us? If you don't ask that question, you're not paying attention. Okay. I think that's all I have to say. Mr. Carrico is the vice chairman. We're probably going to run this as a co-chair. I'll sit here the first couple times, and then he will be up here a while. So I'm going to ask if he has anything he wants to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have much to add in what you said. I agree 100% with everything you said there, and I have the same intention that you have. But I'd like to welcome everybody, the new ones, to the committee. And this is, continuing from last time. So, but welcome the new members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any comments before we officially have a roll call and see if there's a quorum? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Present.
Mr. Carrico?
Present.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Tholen? Ms. Weber?
Present.
Mr. Featherling?
Present.
Ms. Zuccolo? Mr. Long?
He's there.
Mr. Long?
He's on mute. Mr. Long, you're on
He's
mute.
working on it.
Sorry, present.
Mr. Dunnell?
Present.
Mr. Swanson?
Present.
Ms. Bryan? Mr. Collins?
Present.
Ms. Hudson? Mr. Kenneth Smith?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
Mr. Seroy?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I have nothing for public comment this morning. I see nobody sitting. Is any public comment? Let's move right to highways, Mr. Rogers. Oh, shoot, I skipped the minutes, see? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes that were submitted yesterday afternoon? Mr. Hess?
Dunnell.
Dunnell, seconds. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Yes.
Mr. Carrico?
Yes.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson? Mr. Swanson? Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Ms. Hudson? Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
I was an aye, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Swanson was an aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. And now we will go to Mark Rogers, Highway Department.
Very good. I'd just like to start out by introducing myself to the new board members. Yeah, sorry. I'd just like to introduce myself to the new board members. I'm Mark Rogers. I'm the county engineer. I'm appointed by this board, and I run the highway department. I've been here for 34 years. I've been county engineer since 2012, but I've been with the highway department that many years. Today I have a very light agenda. Sometimes we have bid lettings where we let work for the contractors for the summer maintenance work or construction. Other things we do is pass resolutions, give information and presentations, but today all that I have is pay estimates, our engineers' pay estimates. So with that, I'll get to the business. Excuse me. The first pay estimate I have does have an error on it, and I'll tell you that in a minute, but it's for our 2020 general maintenance. It's a pay estimate that should have been to Kankakee Valley Construction Company instead of Gallagher. And that is for asphalt picked up at their plant with our trucks, and that amount is $810. Next is for the county's 2020 general maintenance. This is payable to VCNA Prairie LLC. This is for road mix picked up at the quarry with our trucks, and that amount is $588.44. Next is for our 2020 county general maintenance. This is payable to Vulcan Construction Materials. This is for road mix and chips picked up at the quarry with our trucks, and that amount is $2,225.42. Next is Bourbonnais Townships for their 2020 general maintenance. This is payable to Grosso Trucking, and that amount is $16,390.00. Next is for Kankakee Township, Section 17-05122-00-SS. This is payable to M. Gingrich Giroux. This is for some engineering for Ohio State's drainage project, and that amount is $1,175.00. Next is for Pembroke Township Road District for their 2020 general maintenance. This is payable to Vulcan Materials for road mix picked up at the quarry with their trucks, and that amount is $12,847.30. And last is Bourbonnais Road District, Section 17-02-124-00-BR. This is for a preliminary bridge design. This is for a bridge on 3100 North over Davis Creek, and that amount is $2,455.00. Just for information, these pay estimates are paid out of the county highway funds, not out of the general fund. And the county highway department has 6 funds that we oversee. We oversee the county bridge, the township bridge program, the county MFT, the township MFT, and then the matching tax, and I think that's it. Oh, and the county bridge fund. Yeah.
I'll need a motion to approve these pay estimates with the notation that the Gallagher is to be changed to Kankakee Valley. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Who was that?
Craig Long.
Great, Mr. Long. Second by Mr. Carrico. Roll call vote, please. Are there any questions about these invoices? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Yes.
Mr. Carrico?
Yes.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Ms. Hudson? Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
Thank you. Is that all?
That's all I have today, short and brief to the point.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Rogers? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Andrews. Moving right along. It's brevity, conciseness, and precise. Wes, do you want to introduce yourself to the new members?
All right, thank you. Good morning. My name is Wes Andrews. I'm the maintenance director. The buildings under my purview are this building you're sitting in, 189, the courthouse, the annex, which is next to the old jail, and then Jerome Combs, the detention center, and then attached to that you have public safety and the morgue. So those are the buildings that are under my responsibility. I've been here 3 years in May, so I'm catching up to Mark, but got a long way to go. So,
Okay.
all right, move facility dude
Oh,
report.
stop right there. Ms. Hudson, do you have a question?
Who is the dude?
All right, so
Thank you.
So the Facility Dude is actually a software program that we use to put in work orders in the various buildings. So the employees in the buildings that have access to Facility Dude, they put the work orders in. Either myself or a member of my staff go through the program on a daily basis, look at the work orders, and then assign them as we deem necessary. So each month you'll hear about the Facility Dude report, and hopefully that adds some clarity for the new members. Work orders for last month were 126. That's kind of light, really. We typically run about 160 plus. So that was a light month as far as work orders go. Moving on to the financial report, which you have in front of you there. A few things I'll call out. You can see year-to-date fiscal 20, the total is 909,580.39. The subtotal is 922,870, and that's obviously subtracting the grant revenue that you see up top there. So those are items that have been coded to COVID or COVID-related expenses. So you can see the 909,580. If you take 909,580 and you subtract 59,733.40, you come up with 846.99. And the reason I'm telling you to subtract that number is that's the overage in employee wages, whether it was raises, whether that was added employees. The total of that for 2020 came to nearly $60,000. So if you take that off, we're actually $10,000 behind where we were at this point last year.
Mr. Anders, why ordinarily you anticipate wages? What are those wages related to?
Well, the wages were related to raises, obviously annual raises that the guys get every year, and girls. The additional employees that we hired this year, we are 3 employees over where we were last year.
Is that related to COVID?
2 of them, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Mobile telephones and pagers. We can talk about this a little bit. In the next contract with the Teamsters, we've agreed to remove county phones and pagers, so they won't have those anymore. We're going to go to a stipend. I carry 2 phones and can't stand it. And most of my employees agree, and frankly they weren't being used. A lot of folks enjoyed using their personal phones anyway, so we're going to go with a stipend type program. So that's something that'll be coming off of the financial report, I suppose. The stipend will have to be added, so it's 6 one, half dozen of the other. So that's all I got. Any questions on the financial report?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I should know the answer to this, but I'm assuming that, by the way, this is your year end as it stands right now. There may be some lag bills that come in, but this is pretty close to what we'll see. And with everything you had to deal with, it was a really good job this year. Thank you. I really think you did a lot with a little.
Thank you.
This budget, I believe, used to be well over $1 million when I first got here. Yeah. But it's just great work. The one thing I was wondering though, with all of the insurance claims we had, a lot of that work and that expense comes out of your budget, and then any reimbursements that come from insurance reimbursements for insurance, they're not shown as a revenue line on here is what I'm getting at. So you'll see an expense on here, but you won't see the revenue reimbursement from insurance claims in this budget.
Do we see the expense, or does that go to?
I think you see the expense, because if it's your people that are doing the work, or exactly. We can bill some of the expense, but if it's your guys doing some of the work,
certainly,
it's you'll see that expense in here, or materials,
right?
So are we talking a lot of money or a couple $1,000s?
I can't guesstimate right now what it would be, but it's not 100,000, but it's not 1,000. It's probably, I would say, $10,000 to $25,000. That's just an estimate, because there's a lot that went on this year.
I know it's not.
The courthouse.
Well, even with the
painting
trees, and when the trees fall down, our employees go out, they take care of the trees, they chop them up, they get them off site. So, majority of the insurance related work that we had done this year was all done by subcontractor. So all of those bills wouldn't hit my budget directly because they would go to a different fund. But the employee work that was done as a result of the insurance claims, it's hard to quantify because, you know, it's going to be predominantly labor and then probably fuel and some things like that to handle what they've had to do as a result of the storms.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions on the financial report?
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the building report. We'll start here at 189. As many of you have probably come to learn, we've installed a new door access control system at the front doors of this building. You come in the front doors, you get your temperature taken. It actually is supposed to open up the front door. We're still working out the kinks. We've had to adjust the low threshold on the temperature scanner because obviously this time of year people are cold when they come in the building and their temperature is lower than what it might be otherwise. So we're working through some kinks there, but I'm confident we'll get that worked out. That took coordination from my department as well as several vendors of ours to make all of this happen. And we got a few kinks to work out, but I'm confident that we'll get that done in short order. The elevator update for those new board members that we have. I think it was in August of this year, we sustained some damage here at the building. We had roof damage here. We had tree damage at the courthouse, had some high winds that had come through, and it ripped the roof off of the elevator portion, the elevator shaft for the building, which is up on the roof on the top of 6. It peeled the roof back, and we sustained water damage to one of our elevators. So that's why when you come here and you push the button, there's a lengthy wait because we're only running on one elevator due to water damage. I had solicited 2 bids, come to find out that we have to go through the formal bid process on this work. So we're working through that right now. The issues that I'm having is creating bid documents, creating a bid spec, so that way we're confident that all of the bidders are, you know, we're bidding apples and apples. So that's something I'm working on right now, is getting the bid spec put together. That's over my pay grade, so I've had to solicit some help to get the bid spec put together. And then once I'm done with that, we'll get it published. So I'm hoping to publish next month, which means we might have some bids in February. You know, so if by best case scenario, hopefully we're starting work in the springtime. So when you have to go through that process, it adds time to the process, unfortunately.
Mr. Anders, are you using professional assistants to put that bid spec together?
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's the update on the elevators. I'm doing all I can there, but with the new rules, or not new rules, but with the new direction, that's just a byproduct of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want this committee to know it's building and ground, so you got to understand, if that other elevator goes down, we are in a lot of trouble. ADA, everything. We have no way to get to the upper floors except for stairs. So February just scares the heck out of me. I got to be honest.
I agree.
I don't know what we can do to move this quicker. I don't know.
Well, that's why I suggested professional help. That's boilerplate.
I'm very near complete.
Okay.
All right, yeah, because I mean, this needs to be as fast, and it's not your fault. It's just the way that all of this worked out,
Right.
Especially the bid.
Yeah.
To me, it's still an emergency. I have a difference of opinion with our attorney. We always take their advice. Did you have a comment, Mr. Featherling? Just kidding. You see my point, though. I mean, but we take their advice. We get, it's kind of frightening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Mr. Surroy, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to Mr. Wheeler's point, this is really only going to cost the county our insurance deductible. So this is an insurance claim. It's only going to cost the deductible. But the added work to get to the point where we have vendors to fix is what Mr. Wheeler said is the hassle, and
Doing it legally.
yeah, and is a liability, because if it goes down, then we're all using the stairs.
Understood.
And that the working elevator was inspected last month, and it passed. So knock on wood, we won't have any issues, as it was inspected and was in good condition and everything was satisfactory. So moving on, at the courthouse, the LED light project is underway there again for the new members. We are in the middle of an LED upgrade at Jerome Combs, Public Safety, the courthouse, the old jail, and the annex. That's something that started in the first part of 2020. We started the work, I believe, in October. Started at Jerome Combs, and they're now at the courthouse, and they're about 95% complete at the courthouse. It was, for all the bad that has come with COVID, one good thing is, with the limited schedule at the courthouse, the folks have been able to get in there and, really work quickly through the courtrooms and the common areas of the courthouse with the decreased traffic and decreased caseload. So that is a silver lining on, with the current situation. So the LEDs is about 95% complete at the courthouse. I'm in the process of scheduling a compressor replacement on our rooftop unit on the east side of the building. For those new members, we had a new compressor installed at the beginning of this year. It was under warranty. It went out. For no apparent reason, faulty, I suppose. And the contractor is honoring the warranty. However, I wasn't able to have them out in August or September just due to the heat that we had and having to run that unit. So obviously, I think we're past the point of needing air conditioning in the building. So that's something that'll be scheduled here and completed. So we're ready to go for the springtime. Annex and old jail, they're working right now on LED lights at the old jail. They're about 30% complete right now at the old jail, so they're working through that. As long as I'm at the old jail, I was hoping I could amend the agenda to talk about 2 agenda items. That's one is a soft start motor and the other is a power washing that we discussed. Is there any problem with
It's all under your
with doing that?
No, it's under your reports.
Okay. So the soft start motor, we can talk a little bit about that. We had significant elevator work done, I think it was a couple years ago now. They replaced the hydraulics on the elevator. When they got the elevator shaft out of the ground, they found that the hole was actually not plumb. It was on an angle, so it had to be re-drilled. We spent a considerable amount of money on the elevator at the old jail. Well, one thing that we found when they put the new when they upgraded the systems for the elevator, they did not upgrade the starter on the elevator. It's still the old starter that we've always had. And some of the new systems on the elevator pull more amperage than the old systems. That's just a fact. Some stuff nowadays pulls more, some pulls less. This happens to pull more. So now what we're dealing with is when we're on generator power at the old jail, the elevator is actually pulling more amperage than it did previously, and it's causing the generator to bog down a little bit, which is causing some lights to flicker, which is interrupting some of the systems at the jail. So it's something that we really need to address. I've had 2 companies come out and look at it, and I have 2 quotes to upgrade to a new soft start motor on that elevator. One is $6,978. The other is $7,830. I'd like to go with the low bid on that, and want to take any questions that you might have.
Just a comment, we talked about this, and it's a solid approach. You have to have the soft start on this in order for it. You can't shut down the ability to open and close cell doors and all that other kind of stuff in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a module, though, I think, isn't it?
The
soft start
yeah.
module.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions on regarding that? Oh, Mr. S.
Thank you, Chairman. If you don't replace this and we go on the generator, you may burn up another thing that's not getting the amperage, and then we're going to still end up paying in the long run.
Yeah, it's maxing out the generator. It's even the lights. You stand there, and then the lights are when the elevator runs,
Right.
the lights kind of dim. So I mean, you can tell it needs to be done. It's something. It took a lot of work to figure out what the issue was. So once we figured it out, I've got the numbers now, and it's something that I think we need to do.
We're fortunate we haven't had the snow already this year and ice.
Right.
You could lose power in a hurry.
Okay, very good. Anything else? All right, moving on. A couple months ago, Mr. Snipes asked me to look into some power washing at the old jail. I want everyone to be aware I've done that. I have a bid for the power washing at the old jail. If you're ever out and about and you want to go look at what was done, they power washed the southeast corner of the building. Really looks great. Looks good. I have the number, but I don't want to talk about it right now. I think this is best served as a spring project. So as long as the committee agrees, I just want everyone to know that, I have the number. I've looked into it. I think it might make sense to do it, but maybe this spring we revisit that. So just closing the loop on that one.
Just a question, how do we proceed with that? That isn't or is not in a budget?
It is not in the budget right now. We lump sum budget maintenance, okay? So we're not over budget until you're over budget. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We don't do line item. There's other things that we'll talk about in a minute that we did plan for and put it in the budget. That was not one of them. But it's good to keep the number, because if we do want to bid that, then we're not doing what we've done in the past and throw that number out and put that person to disadvantage.
Yeah, we'll keep the number now.
Right.
Thank you.
So yeah, that'll be a spring project. Yeah. Moving on out to JCDC. Over the course of the last week, we had an issue. We have 3 generators out at Jerome Combs. One of them is we have a Generac, we have a Caterpillar, and then we have a Catalyte generator. And the Catalyte, we lost power out there, and the Catalyte did not run. We just had it serviced like 2 weeks before that. That is one of the items. Our generators are one of the items that we do perform preventative maintenance on. We've talked about that at this committee. So they just come out, they've done the preventative maintenance on it. Well, on the back of the board, there was corrosion on the back of the board, which caused the board to fail. So the generator did not run. This was on like a Saturday or a Sunday. Through some discussions with Mr. Kinzinger, Mr. Seroy, the sheriff, we decided that we needed to get a temporary generator on site. In the event that we did lose power, you can't have half the jail without. So we did. We made the decision to get a temporary generator on site. The cost of the temporary generator is going to be around $10,000. The board repair is going to be around $5,000, and then there's going to be some costs from electrician to hook up and disconnect the unit. So that's something that happened over the course of the last couple weeks. I tried my best to make sure the appropriate parties were informed as to what was going on. There were some delays in getting the correct part here. Catalyte, as I understand it, is, it's not a Cummins or a Kohler or a Generac, and the parts are therefore a little more difficult to come by. And not only the parts, but the expertise to program their parts, because it's not as common as some of the other units that are out there. So we did have some delays. This is the generator costing about $10,000. I had hoped that it was going to be about $5,000 if we could have got this done within a week and a half, which was our original timeline. But we're going over that by about 2 weeks. So that's why the increased cost from the generator. Any questions on that?
This isn't a small generator, by the way. I said I would donate one.
Yeah,
the big one. That's why it's so much money.
The temporary generator come in on a trailer, and not just any trailer, like an actual tractor trailer that you'd pull behind a semi. So it's quite large. One of those things that better safe than sorry. We can't risk the safety of the inmates or the officers, and I hate to spend that kind of money, but I believe it was money well spent.
Cost of doing business.
Moving on, the LEDs are done out at Jerome Combs, so happy to report that. That was a major undertaking, and as long as I'm on that point, I want to make sure I thank Chief Kulawinzu and the corrections staff for their assistance out there. As you know, we're shorthanded in my department, and just because we're putting up LED lights, that doesn't mean that faucets aren't leaking and toilets aren't breaking and everything else that we deal with on a daily basis. So for them to help out was very much appreciated. They're currently helping us out at the old jail, and the way that we've been able to work together with their department has been outstanding. So kudos to the corrections staff and then my staff as well, because like I said, we have our normal work that we have to do on a daily basis as well. And in addition to assisting and coordinating with the LED light folks. So it's been a big undertaking, but I think for the most part, it's gone just about as smooth as it can go. That's all I got.
Fantastic. Does anybody have any questions for Wes before he leaves? Thank you, Wes.
I do have one.
Go ahead.
Animal control facility. Yeah. You guys are doing maintenance out there. You guys have been doing quite a few things out there. Just for this committee's benefit, because I've got to talk about some things regarding animal control. Mm-hmm. Could you give your professional assessment of that facility, and just is it something that is I say worth more dead than alive, if you will? I would agree. It's dilapidated. They get by. I don't know what Carrie's space needs are over there, but just walking in there, she's cramped, she's busting at the seams. The building is, it's old, it's it's drafty, the doors, the seals on the doors, the mechanical systems, the furnace, it's in bad shape. Holes in the roof type stuff that you guys have patched and had to call out contractors. Plumbing, I'm hearing sewer. Yeah, we had a sewer issue. Carrie made me aware of that the other day. She had a contractor out, recommends excavation and repairing the sewer line, which it probably needs to be done. I have some expertise in that area. Is it emergent? No, but probably something that should be looked at and budgeted for next year. So to your point, it's not my best building, put it that way. Would you assess that we're probably going to be continuing to throw money at it for the foreseeable future of the life of that building? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yep.
Anybody else have any comments related to that subject or any other subject for Wes? Mr. Sirois, just a second.
Yeah, Mr. Kinzinger, just moving on to old business, I'd like to get this out there.
Oh.
Have a seat, Wes, because I'm going to ask you a couple questions. You own a vending company, do you not, sir?
Yes, sir.
How long have you owned that vending company?
I've owned the vending company about 6 years.
Okay. How long have you been working for the county? I thought I heard you say 3 years.
3 years in May, so okay. I'm coming up on that.
Does your vending company have a contract with the county?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Has there ever been any complaints about your vending company throughout the nature of your 6 years working?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That's all the questions I got.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that, Mr. Sirois. Under old business, status of vending contractor bid response. Is Ms. Speckman going to handle that? You're on, Anita. Can you hear?
Yes, I can. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So at the November meeting, the bid for vending services was open and accepted by this committee, pending review by my office. And Todd is correct. There was only one bid received, and that was from Alternative Vending Concepts. I requested a contract from the vendor because all we had was the bid response, and it didn't have all the details we would want to see. And once I received that, I forwarded the contract as well as the bid response to the state's attorney's office for review, and they sent me a responding email on December 3rd. They have a couple concerns. The first is that the Secretary of State website indicates both ABC and its assumed name, IFIT, I don't know if that's IFIT or IFIT or whatever, they are not in good standing currently with the Secretary of State's office. Mr. Andrews is listed as the president and secretary of the corporation, and I did verify that Mr. Andrews did file a statement of economic interest with the county clerk's office on March 20th of 2020, disclosing the relationship. The state's attorney's office is currently researching if ABC is able to be granted the contract under state law based on Mr. Andrews' employment status. At a minimum, the current process under the state's attorney's recommendation is that the current process be changed, as the current checks currently go to the maintenance department for review prior to deposit. The state's attorney's office recommends that the checks go directly to the treasurer's office and include a detailed statement including each machine, the gross receipts, the amount of commission, so that there's some detail behind the deposit amount. That report would be included then with the monthly report from the treasurer's office. So at this time, the state's attorney's office does not recommend granting the contract until those issues are ironed out and resolved. We're not saying not granted, or they're not recommending it's not granted, but just not at this time until we get these issues resolved. And Ms. Nicholson is currently, she's on the meeting if anyone has specific questions regarding the issues.
Does anybody have a question for Ms. Nichols regarding this? Who's that? Who's that? I can't read their name. No, okay. Mr. Andrews has something to say.
Yeah, Anita, just so you're aware, that is the process right now. The check is cut. It's in a sealed envelope. It goes directly to the treasurer with a statement of the machines and the sales. So as far as a procedure standpoint, hopefully we can, folks can feel good in the fact that that procedure is already in place. As far as the certificate of good standing with the state, that is, I was late in filing the certificate or the business certificate with the state. It's something you got to do on an annual basis, and it was just an oversight on my behalf getting that filed with the state. So hopefully that clears up those couple issues.
And if I can speak, Chairman, the issue that we're having, it has nothing to do with Mr. Andrews or the company or anything. We just want to make sure that everything is clean, that we're transparent, and that we're following, make sure that we have the responses to the way the statute is written. That's all we're in the process of doing. Like Ms. Speckman said, we are not saying to not go with them. We're just saying we need some clarifications. In reading prior contracts we've had with vending companies, and then the one that subsequently has been entered in with Mr. Andrews' company, there's just like the laying out of the procedure is not in the current contract. So we just want to get some things cleaned up. We want to add more transparency, and we just want to make sure that everything is followed correctly, because we don't want anything negative to come out of this, because there hasn't been anything yet.
So what are you recommending at this time? I guess that's to Ms. Speckman or Nancy?
Well, Ms. Speckman and I have discussed this. At this time, what we're recommending is once Mr. Andrews gets the certificates of good standing to show that the company is back in good standing, to present those to us, and we'll look at that. Because as the state's attorney's office, we would never recommend the county enter into a contract with somebody that's not in good standing. That could potentially be a liability issue. So once that's clarified, we'll go from there. I am researching the issue of the law as it relates to, it's under Public Officer Prohibited Activities Act. It has to do with prohibited interest in contracts. So I have to look at that and see how that relates to Mr. Andrews and his position in the county and different things that's associated with. Once we get through that, then next we have to address the issue under the county's code, which deals with how the county accepts contracts where there is an interest of somebody who is employed or elected in the county.
Are we talking years or days?
It depends on how long it takes to get the certificate of good standing, and then we're going to look at Wes's or Mr. Andrews' employment with the county. One of the make points is whether or not he has decision-making abilities, which he does, but since he answers to the chairman and the board, we have to see if that's enough to alleviate that kind of potential issue we would have. Since his department is the one that oversees the vending machines, that's kind of what we have to look at. We need to make sure that that's a clean relationship and that everything, not clean, but make sure that everything is transparent into that relationship. And I mean, it's good that that's the way the procedure for the checks has been done. I just recommended it because it was not outlined in the contract, and I would feel better if it was outlined in the contract.
So I'm back to my original question. We are doing what?
We're throwing it back now to the company to provide us certificates of being in good standing, and then
we'll move
we are
forward.
making a determination.
So at this time, this is just bringing this committee up to date with what's transpiring.
That is correct.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions regarding this report? Ms. Speckman, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you. Under new business, I think Mr. Wheeler has something to say.
Yeah, this is, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is more old business stuff. This committee, oh geez, with COVID, it's hard to remember how long ago we started, but we had put out a RFQ, request for qualifications, for a company to give us a strategic needs and a space analysis of our, a few of our facilities around.
Yes.
We had, yeah, it's been, I think it was January, and it just got delayed because of COVID and the priorities and everything else. So we finally got, we bid that out, that request for proposal. We received, this committee had selected at the recommendation of the interview companies, if you remember, or the company that they chose. They recommended that we pass that, and the next step was for them to submit us how much would it cost to do this work. And so that has come back, and that will go to finance. But I just want to let this committee know is that that will be on the agenda if you want to watch the video or come to the meeting for finance to see what that proposal is. It was very reasonable, and we actually did put that amount of money, and I don't have it here in front of me, I apologize, but we did put that in the budget for next year. And I believe we ended up putting it in the planning budget because that is a planning activity. I believe that's where we put it. So I just want to let you know that, and that will be at finance. And then the work product is basically taking a look at the buildings as we had mentioned before. So there'll be more on that at finance.
Before you leave that subject, Mr. Kirkstra, who was on this committee last time, spoke very highly of this company when he had checked them out too. So
right,
I wanted to say, I think it's a good company.
Yeah, they're solid. They're solid. And they do design, build, and all that other stuff. So they don't just give you esoteric numbers, pie in the sky. They actually are able to take a look and see, you know, we're not buying Cadillacs. We're going Chevy. You know what I mean? We're going to something solid that we can drive if that's what the space needs. We got valuations on our properties, both from our insurance company and from other valuators. So we've got all of those things that we need to know going forward, because you just can't start planning for the future and almost like playing Monopoly. You have to base it on what your needs are and what they're going to be over the next 20 years. So 15 to 20. So that's, I just want to let the committee know that it's coming. The other thing was I don't know if it was mentioned here, I thought it was, but we got grants last year at with the great help of Representative Parkhurst for our courthouse. There was another one that was approved that I was just notified that the paperwork is starting to disperse next year, and it's a $400,000 grant for the courthouse. So it's substantial, and it was centered around accessibility, infrastructure. It's brick and mortar. It's not technology and things like that. So we're investigating exactly what the ins and the outs of it are, but I've already reached out to the interested parties, which is the sheriff, the chief judge, Wes, obviously, Anita, Kevin Duval to get there in case there is some infrastructure, Senator Joyce and Representative Haas to get together, and I will probably see if one of you two, the chair or the vice, would like to be in that meeting as well once I have a you've been drafted, but to get in that meeting, because we want to see what their priorities are over there. We've already got the ADA issue with the courtroom addressed, but there's other things that are with that 100-year-old building that are some substantial issues. So we would like to get their input. It's the chief judge and the sheriff's building, if you will. It's in their custody, so we need to obviously line up with their priorities as well. So it's the first step on that, but usually that's great news. I mean, you don't get that $400,000 grant very often. So we'll look at that and kind of blend it into, if the time permits, if we have a strategic plan and space needs back, maybe this enters into that as well. So want to let you know that. And then the final thing is, and it's for board members who weren't here, roughly a couple years ago, there was we took the management of animal control and put it with the sheriff for very specific reasons. The board decided that in the long term, we weren't going to build a new facility. That was something that we didn't think that that was a good use of the county's money when other people are adoption arms for the animal community. We wanted to focus on enforcement and doing all of these agreements with these municipalities around the area. We learned the other day that Bourbonnais has signed an agreement to have their residents just be able to call up animal control for various things, and they don't have to go through their village anymore. They can go directly, and we'll handle, I would say, police, if you will, for animal control, Bourbonnais, which is a great step, and that was one of the main goals, and we're going to get into that later in the month when we have to sign that agreement. And that's why I asked Wes about the condition of the building, because there is a property that we have identified on the market that would fit our needs, and there may be a very formal, well put together plan brought back to this committee, and we may have to have special meetings because there could be a required letter of intent on this property that solves a lot of our problems going forward, and the price is something that we can't ignore. It's something that fits into our plan going forward. So I'd mentioned it to the chairman. We may have to execute a letter of intent to put some type of an offer in that is not binding until this body decides that we want it to be binding.
And funding for this is in
funding
place,
for it
can
is
be...
yeah. There's we have a couple of different areas. Obviously animal control has their own funds. They're not part of the general fund, so they have the IPTIP building fund. They have other animal control funds. They have, and I'll get into another area of that. They have the property on Grinnell Road. And then we have the ability to float alternate revenue bonds based on future revenues from animal control to do any build out that we would need to do to house the animals. So that the finances seems like it could be something. Oh, and I forgot, Bark has raised a bunch of money as well for a new facility, and this would qualify for that. So I'm sure there still is a good partner to the county in the effort to have a better functioning animal control department. So I'm extremely excited about this, and I'm sure that Mrs. Weber and folks like that, if this works out, and it's just the first phase, there's a lot to go. But I had to tell the committee because we might have to submit a letter to get in line, if you will, for this property. We don't necessarily want to let it slip through our fingers if we can help it.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
You have anything else?
No, I think it's good. Thank
Mr.
you.
Carrico, do you have anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody on this committee have anything they want to ask?
Make a motion to close.
Mr. Hess makes a motion that we close. Is there a second? I guess we continue. Oh, thank you. Ms. Hudson seconds. We will do this informally. All those in the room signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
All those on Zoom signify by saying aye or shaking your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a